Some maps you might call cramped, others you might call chaotic, but Bismuth Valley, I think it's one that we might all call comfortable. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Brightworks, where I hope you're having a fabulous day. We're going to kick it off with some Beyond All Reason action. Bismuth Valley, what a wonderful map. It's got all these lovely lanes, and it makes it really easy to know exactly what you're doing, right? You don't have to worry who's going to go air, who's going to go transports, who's going to go frontline, who's going to go backline, who's going to tech, who's going to greed, yada, yada, yada. It's all in the game. You just play your lane and you play your heart out, and you see who can duke it out to the very end. And well, I'm always a big fan of that. Now, before we go in here, just checking my audio settings. Yep, there we go. Had a little audio issue this morning. Wouldn't be the Brightworks without it. And does look like all systems are green. We have nominal reports across the board, and so we are going to kick off this match. Spawning on the western side and representing the red team, it's going to be Nizah. Nizah going as the Armada red team commander, going to be spawning with that triple mechs into 2 solar panels and 2 wind turbines. A little bit greedy there. A lot of metal down the drain going for 2 solar panels, but as long as we stay cognizant about all that metal being put out on the field, I don't think I minded all too much in these matches that are very, very high skill. I certainly expect that all these players are going to be well intended with their T1 solar panels. At the very least, paying close attention to exactly what that metal is being used for and where it's being distributed across the field. Spawning all the way across the way here, lined up against the red team leader, but slightly off center, off kilter here to the northern side. It's gonna be Coochie. Coochie, a what is that? 42 true skill Canadian player here, clocking in very well high up the charts. Definitely well into pro level territory. That's always a point of debate. Is like, what do we consider pro level? And beyond all reason, I feel like I've noticed that the skill level in this game, just across the board, has gone up for basically everyone. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. It means I'm going to lose a whole lot more games, but hey, if it means that the community is growing, I guess I can only be happy about that. Either way here, Coochie going to be getting a foothold here on the top line with a vehicle start. Armada as well. Hard to go wrong with those Armada vehicles. They can do a lot of damage early on. Rovers making their way across the map. Rovers are a little harder to micro than the Rascals. They just one thing or another, they just tend to perform a little bit worse, but overall still a very powerful unit. And if we can get these across the map, it might be very nice to know what our enemy is up to. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case though, as the forces of Nizah paired with Raigeki are going to bounce off, deflect, and repel any of those incoming invaders from the blue and purple, because Coochie is accompanied by Volshok. Volshok going to be playing in purple today. One of my favorite colors, that deep lavender color. Very, very nice to see. Across the middle of the map here, we do have forces moving out already, and I love it. 3 minutes into this game, and we already see massive armies pushing their way across the maps, trying to wiggle their way into the enemy's backline, finding whatever open weaknesses they can. I'm keeping my eyes peeled to see if anybody manages to sneak anything through, but frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the micro was pretty much on point here to make sure that everything lands nicely. Dark Clone here does have a scout across the map, could be using that offensively, but instead decides to recall it after recognizing that there is a big cluster of ticks moving its way across. Trying to micro Rascals against ticks, very difficult, but definitely possible. Yeah, difficult. Keyword difficult. Most of those go down, but 2 of those ticks do survive. Very nimble, those ticks. You have to be so careful. There is, however, a light laser tower here. Oh, it will clean up both of those ticks. Very nicely done there by Dark Clone. Locking down his little choke point here to make sure that those ticks aren't able to get very much aggression. And I think that's going to secure a nice little early game here. Looks like lines are already drawn, so I'm not anticipating all too much aggression. However, speaking of the devil, indeed, we do have Angry Strawberry moving some of her forces through the middle here, looking to get aggressive with these grunts, trying to find an exposed weakness. Always important to probe your enemy right here in these choke points between all these little gulches and gullies. You can oftentimes sneak a unit or 2 through there and get a fabulous trade. Grunts trade wonderfully against ticks as well. You have to keep them from getting pounced upon, but eventually, yeah, that laser fire from those grunts does pair pretty well with the rapid fire. Coochie going to be protecting his Janus, will keep it alive. Very nicely done. That was actually really important. These early game Januses, if you can snowball them quickly, you can certainly knock commanders out very, very quickly. Only takes about 5 connections, 5 or 6. I would say 6 is a safe bet, but sometimes you can pull it off with 5 with flanking bonuses and whatnot. Connections from the Januses in order to blow up a commander. It's a very powerful unit, very devastating on the early game, and also can, I mean, just force a commander off of any control point when they Well, they're down to 3% health. Nobody wants to keep a commander around there and risk losing it. Looks like we had a commander transported up to the front lines here by Newbie, or Nobi, N0BY. Call you Newbie. To Newbie. Gonna be starting with an air lab here. Interesting. I don't hate it. It's a very complicated start, but managed to repel enough to keep it viable here. See also with the bot lab in order to get a couple of pawns out on the field. There is some aggression though. Looks like Strawberry's moving her forces through here. Finding a little bit of a gap. There is a light laser tower here. It's going to make the defense a little bit easier, but that is still 11 grunts. 11 grunts. Guess I'm hungry for some cheap gas station food or something. I don't know. Anyways, grunts here are going to be whittled down by the Janus fire. Oh yeah, it will survive, so it can fire again. It's not going to get the opportunity, but at the very least, it does survive, and that will mean more forces in the front line. I think taking out the 2.8 middle extractor as well as 3 of these 1.8s is probably going to justify the aggression from those grunts, but we do of course need to see those units built up on the front. But actually it looks like that is not what Strawberry's going to be going for. Transitioning into the vehicle bay here, it's a very strong transition. You get a couple of those pounders out and that effectively shuts down any counter swarm that your opponent might be going for. You get a couple of those Wolverines and Lashers out, then you have yourself an effective siege army, and then of course you round it out with a couple of those brutes for just raw durability. Very sturdy composition. It's the tried and true. It's what we see out of Cortex basically every time, and there's a reason for it, right? It works. Now we do of course have the bot lab held in reserve here. You can always eat that up if you want to go all the way into vehicles, but holding it in reserve to make a couple of those res bots is never a bad idea. Res bots of course can complement vehicles quite nicely because of course those vehicles are so expensive that when their wreckages are left out on the field, it makes for a very, very valuable reclaim opportunity. Dylan and Hugs trying to lock down the middle here. There's already 4 Januses, counting with the Brightworks, built up here for the orange player, so that's quite nice. Down south here, looks like we do have a little bit of aggression from some of these pawns. Trying to find an engagement here, but they're so careful not to walk into that commander and accidentally get de-gunned into oblivion. Mustard going for a similar strategy here, going for the forward vehicle bay, but actually doubling down and building a couple of construction towers, some build power. Not bad at all. Also going into a radar jammer. Not the worst decision, but definitely kind of a band-aid on a bigger problem, right? You're sort of disabling your enemy's artillery, kind of, but they can always dumbfire those, and as soon as they have vision, any kind of scouting craft, they're gonna just start firing away once more. So you have to be sort of hesitant to invest too much in jamming technologies. This is also a lot of build power on the front. We're thinking about holding this line to the death, because as soon as these construction towers goes down, I mean, that's 210 metal a pop. Very expensive. Beamer turret trying its best. A couple of incisors sacrificed here. Oh, that's a lot of friendly fire from the Janus right there. All said and done though. Ooh, repair. Oh, no, we don't get the repair off in time. That's unfortunate. There are res bots though to pick up that defense, and I think that will be all well. It's like, oh, interesting. Okay, so we've transported a tank over to this line. I was wondering how that tank got up there. That was transported over there by Newbie, who was the player who went for that very early transport plane, moving the commander around. Oh, there it is. You can see those storks carrying around whatever they need to. And yeah, it's actually a really nice play. Moving a tank up on top of here, it can start laying down some fire. I'd love to see artillery built up here as well. A couple of Wolverines put on top of this hill could certainly lay down the law onto anything unsuspecting below. Big engagement down here. Flat E de-gunning apart the entire army from Hugs and Dylan. Dylan with a bunch of missile trucks to at the very least push this back. Ooh, Janus is going to fire. Missiles won't connect directly, but still scuffing up more and more of that commander's HP. Very difficult to deal with. The difficulty with Janus, of course, is the fact that you have to essentially fully commit, right? If you're going to push into Janus's, you have to bear the brunt of the first wave of rockets that hit your troops, and then you have to keep going, and oftentimes it's really dissuading to take that heavy hit and think you should keep pushing in. But Janus are at their weakest the second that they've fired. They're suddenly sitting ducks. Northern side has fully collapsed over here. Build power will fall here for Regeki, and Nizah is also on the retreat. Janus is firing away here for our purple player, going to be whittling down both of the red commanders here. Missile trucks also doing a great job of connecting. That will be Nizah's commander going down with hardly any damage on the purple and blue forces from the commander explosion. This is a very, very solid push. This is a strong T1 push. This could certainly get a lot of damage done. If this is concerted with enough anti-air forces to shut down any shurikens or anything like that, I'm thinking about missile trucks, which we do have here for Volshock. If we include maybe a couple of blitzes here as some sort of front line unit, yeah, this could certainly do enough damage to break through the front lines. There are ticks here. Tick Swarm is a pretty good solution to the Janus, at least temporarily. Friendly fire is also not to be neglected either. Rocketeers firing away wherever they can, but yeah, those Januses, I mean, you support them correctly and they will pay their dividends. Northern side handily won by the blue team. Southern side also well contested by the blue team, so that's a, I mean, that's going to be difficult to push forward into here as the red player. There is a scuffle right here, but I'm going to keep my eyes right in the center of the map. Angry Strawberry does move her commander right into the middle of this engagement. D-guns down a couple of those Wolverines as well as some of those medium tanks. Going to be surrounded here and taking tons of damage, but I think enough damage was done by the light blue commander, sort of the aquamarine blue commander here, in order to shunt this attack at least a little bit here. Flat E is going to be up to bat next here as these tanks continue to apply pressure, although they are being pushed back slowly but surely. That's the thing, right? 3 commanders going down means there's tons of metal right here, meaning that you have to contest this area. No commander is, well, no team rather, is safe if they don't go for some of this metal, and so I'm really liking what Jaded Cross is doing here, using the commander to eat up some of this, and I wouldn't mind seeing some more res bots from other teams, or other teammates rather, coming down to try and eat some of this up. Hugs is going to get in on the action as well with the commander trying to eat up some of these wreckages, and I think that's exactly the right idea. Not to mention all the tanks and whatnot that are lying around in the dirt over here. Very well worth noting. Sir Ice Cream losing the front line as well. Artillery trucks are ravaging all these tanks and well, bots as well that are standing still here. Yellow versus green. And I think I favor the yellow forces slowly but surely here, gaining an advantage. Orange forces have now split off and have started to leak into other lines, doing a little bit of damage here. These tanks will be repelled. It's very easy to throw these tanks away and just dive them into the enemy backline, but I think it's a really wise idea from Dylan to pull these back here and try and regroup them and maybe find a more valuable opening in the future. It's often a very difficult tactical decision to make, but I think it's one that's well made here. Agitator was built up here. That's quite interesting. It is being shelled away, however, by another agitator. Oh, by a gauntlet. There it is. I was wondering. I saw the heavy artillery coming down from the high heavens, and I wondered what on earth was shooting at it. It is a gauntlet up against an agitator here. Dark Clone de-gunning down a whole bunch of these tanks here. It's expensive in the energy sector, and the commander does go down, but that commander death does wipe away all of the static defense, and what was once a very surefire hold down here on the southern side has rapidly transitioned into a victory for the red players, specifically for the tan player down south there. Now, this line is dominating. We do have res bots here to eat up as much as we can over here, which is quite nice. 990 metal over there, a couple hundred metal over here as well. But yellow forces are already leaking through, and this is a lot of backline damage. 3 1.8 metal extractors going down. We have tanks continuing to push forward, and these are relatively healthy tanks too. T2 is finally produced here by Full Shock, transitioning into a T2 lab using the positional advantage that was claimed from the front line here. These lightning tanks are quite good at catching up to the medium tanks, but they still don't kill them super quickly. I mean, they're going to kill them quicker than the T1 tanks, but still, it's a matter of how quick can you shut down this aggression. These tanks were a little bit hesitant. I think they got called back. I think these should have dived on the blue base, and I think it's just fortunate here for Kuchi, who has transitioned into an air lab, that those tanks didn't push any further here. Luck is a real factor, and it's something to always be aware of. Resbots at this point for Angry Strawberry are going to be patching together a makeshift army out of the corpses of the fallen here. We've got Stouts alongside Brutes, alongside Whistlers, alongside Lashers, or sorry, alongside, well, no Whistlers in this mix, at least not right now. Most of that metal was eaten up here. You can see all 3 of those commander corpses are gone and eaten, consumed and turned back into metal forces in the pockets of the blue team, or the red team rather. The blue team, however, is doing some fabulous bombing, and by that I mean Kuchi here has, as I've already missed, bombed a couple of different players. You can see these are the remnants of the bombing run, and you can see they're quite effectively taking down a lot of the power infrastructure for the red team here. You can tell by the craters that was a bunch of wind turbines that were all sitting there. At least I can tell. I've been staring at bar long enough. I can read the battlefield, right? Tell what exactly has gone down here. Flak will eventually shoot down these bombers, but that was quite a nice hit for the blue player. They're using those bombers however they could. Console and base, T2 and base. T2 will finally be distributed here for Kuchi to rebuild, and it looks like instead of going for T1 on these metal extractors, just going to upgrade them to T2. I think that's probably fair. Of course, getting them T1 metal extractors can help you with that, but it's not always the end-all be-all. Advanced solar panels for Strawberry, and I think I quite like that. Wind speed can be a little bit finicky on this map, especially with the fact that you don't actually have excuse me, all too much building space, right? I mean, you have a lot of space back here, but if you fill it up with wind turbines, it goes away pretty quick. Especially if you're going to keep them any amount spread out, so they don't chain react with each other. It's yeah, it's oftentimes very, very easy for those to quickly take up a whole lot more of your base than you really would rather have them using. Forward T2 lab. That's I mean, you cannot lose this position. Losing this position is a loss of the game here. Going into a groundhog here, the mine layer, the Armada mine layer. That's a name that I don't use very often, the groundhog. Yeah, and we're gonna set down some heavy mines. I mean, yeah, that's not a bad idea. However, oh, heavy mine wasted on a rover right there. That's unfortunate. Not the end of the world because the groundhog survived, but yeah, using the mines is definitely a very effective way to eco your heart out. You can get a incredibly efficient trade with a mine layer if you manage to bait the enemy on top of the mines. Obviously, the enemy should not be walking into the mines. That's just taking advantage of a tactical folly on your enemy's part. But that's a strategy nonetheless, right? Whether it's successful or not, I guess that's up to your enemy. It's never comfortable to be playing a strategy that relies on the folly of your enemy, but you know, sometimes it's the only strategy that you really can afford. Persecutor has been built up here. It is in high fire mode, meaning that these plasma shots are arcing high up into the upper atmosphere and down back to the ground, where they will hopefully collide with a lot of these forces, although in practice, not likely. They take so long from shot to finish in order to actually collide with wherever the hell the units are off to next. It's really unlikely that they're actually going to connect with anything. However, if they do, if they do, oh no. Boom, right in the middle of all of them. If they do, it's a whopping connection right there. I'm pretty sure the green player's got to be pretty happy about that. A couple of Stormbringers come in here, drop a little payload right there. And they are going to go for one more bombing run, just carpet bombing the ever-living hell out of the hot pink player's base here, shutting down all those solar panels. Not bad. That being said, Stormbringer's kind of pathetic, all things considered. Yeah, well, let's just say they're not as impressive as their Cortex counterparts. The Whirlwind oftentimes makes a much more convincing argument as far as devastating bombing runs go. Flak Truck is out now, and it will also shut down these bombers with relative ease. Well, those ones found a really good connection right there, though. Nicely done, blowing up all those wind turbines. There you go. You can see that signature pattern. Yeah, shutting down whatever they can. I mean, I don't hate it. It's essentially infinite damage on the end of the, your opponent's end of the map, so no reason not to take advantage of that. Sneaky little boy over here. Kuchi's jammer is still giving him a little bit of vision as these tanks are lingering around it. Obviously, they don't know that that's there. It's jammed and cloaked, so it's very difficult to detect. You basically have to walk into it. Mauser and Bull in accompaniment here. Jaguars as well for that fire support. Great for shutting down tick spam, so I am glad to see it here, especially considering that's the strategy that Flatty has decided to go for. Ticks, of course, can poke away at these radar jammers in order to shut them off. It's I choose to believe that it's a design decision that once radars are damaged a little bit, they turn off, and then eventually they're supposed to turn back on. I think they're a little bit bugged right now because they do not turn back on. Yeah, I think that's a known bug. I don't see why that would be a feature otherwise. Pitbull has been built up here. It's actually a really nice place for some static defense because it's right where this hill starts, which means that these units are going to move a whole lot slower, giving that Pitbull more time, of course, to fire away at whatever should be off in the distance. I think that's a great idea. It's a lot of Janices and a lot of ticks. I mean, it's kind of nice. The ticks do a great job of distracting a lot of the firepower, right? Baiting out a lot of those shots if there's anything that hits with a lot of punch, but not a lot of fire rate. Sharpshooters, for instance, but also, you know, things like Janice and that sort of thing. But also they serve as a fairly decent bait to do friendly fire, right? And these artillery trucks, absolutely prone to friendly fire as they shoot up into the air, and oftentimes those arced shots come colliding down right next to the army that they are meant to protect. And there they go. The ticks colliding with everything. Janice is, of course, friendly firing whatever they shoot that's next to the tickets as well, and there go the blue Janices, built up in enough numbers to be devastating. Kuji has been allowed to tech up to T2, and I really think that's a blunder on behalf of Nizah. I think a counterattack would have been tremendous, but it's really hard to organize that and feel confident about it when you've lost so much terrain for so long. It really feels like you're on the back foot, even though for a while here, the T2 advantage could have been expressed and the T1 army for the blue player could have been ravaged. At this point, Strawberry is well into T2 production, has quite a few Tigers out on the field. That is, of course, to counter the Tigers of Jaded Cross, who is also moving some of those hot pink tanks across. Well, I guess not hot pink, the light pink tanks across, the powder pink tanks across. Not as intimidating, I guess, but still interesting in its own regard. The tanks are starting to ball up for both players here. It's just one of those micro things, right? You click around, as we can see Jaded Cross. You just right click in order to move them all to one spot. But technically speaking, the best of the best will micro them always by right click and dragging, constantly spreading the units out, just so that whatever minor AoE might accompany any of these vehicles, it's mitigated by them being spread out. Bulls now joining in the fight, and those are a much more pressing threat. Yep. And again, also another reason to spread your tanks as much as possible. Those bulls definitely do a lot of damage. Oh, we have the additional Cortex T2 vehicles enabled. Yeah, okay, so that adds a whole host of different vehicles. I'll take a second here to explain some of those. They have the Salamander, which is a heat ray amphibious tank, which is pretty funny. There's, I believe there's a Heat Tiger. Maybe I'm wrong about that, or maybe it got changed. Yeah, actually looks like that is no longer part of this pack, unless I'm just downright missing it. But anyway, it also adds the Printer, which is essentially a construction turret strapped onto a truck, which is actually pretty cool. It's like it's a mobile construction turret, and I think it would be really nice to include a couple of these. Yeah, start using them in the backline to eat up a lot of this metal. They can reclaim on the move, which is a really interesting skill. It's one that I don't think any other unit has, so maybe a little bit imba there. But either way, yeah, it'd be cool to have that. I mean, you can imagine it just like circling this battlefield, right? Just eating up all these wreckages while it's running around trying to feed that metal back into the economy. I don't play with Cortex, and I don't play with Cortex vehicles especially, so I'm not all too familiar with the extra Cortex, but certainly it makes for a interesting little addition. You know, I'm always happy to see additional settings being put on here. There's so much available in this game, I figure why squander all that. Sephi in a little bit of trouble down south. Yeah, that's a lot of hounds. T2 trying to throw up any kind of defenses that it can. Light Laser Tower working overtime right now to try and keep this tick swarm at bay. Low on energy, though. Is Sephi going for some sort of big construction project? Yeah, we do have a fusion reactor underway. No units being produced right now, so Sephi is at a critical juncture. Can't really afford to put this Scorpion turret up right now. The T2 constructor goes down. The commander is cloaked. There's no radar detection, though. Ooh, yep, so can't see the outline. Whoa. There we go. All right, nice. Excellent D-guns right there. Carving a path through all those hounds, managing to, at the very least, slow down this aggression quite a lot. Not going to be able to spiral quite as quickly, buying enough time for support from the ally, and that shuts down a lot of that aggression on the southern side. That was really critical of a hold right there. Blue player has recovered phenomenally. As you can see, these Mauser are now putting in a devastating field of work. This is pretty good. You gotta be careful. Those Janus, they will friendly fire. Yeah, the ticks do make it eventually. There's enough of them. And the Rocketeers, the Hounds, basically everything else will move in after the lines are disrupted. And I think there's certainly enough to blow back this blue army here. T2 Constructor has been pulled to the front lines, I think accidentally. Yep, there it will go. Backing off at this point. Kuji's Commander is now trying to hold it up here as well. It's a lot of Constructors. Not exactly the ideal combat unit. Lightning Tank's a little bit better for the job here. I think the Bull could also be sacrificed in order to spare everything over here. Kuji's Commander, getting really low, will go down, taking out a lot of those Constructors that were falling around this T2 advanced construction truck. That is unfortunate to see. And once again, flipping and flopping back and forth here, the red player has secured a nice little advantage, especially if we're able to eat up all that meat on the commander's bones. Turn that back into 1.2 thousand metal worth of red units. I think it could certainly be well worth it. T2 is your reward for winning your lane. That's the new motto. And for what it's worth, it works pretty well. I mean, it pretty much explains exactly what you should be thinking of in terms of how you should take these engagements and what engagements are and aren't profitable and what you can get out of each engagement, right? You're always looking to use your advantage in some way, and one way to leverage that advantage is, of course, to go for a T2. So if you win your lane, consider that. Otherwise, consider pushing in as hard as you can. What on earth just fired over here? Oh, there was an ambassador up here. Interesting. Is that what happened? Did we see? It must have been friendly fire, because it was a it was a mustard ambassador fired a missile into his own base. So I'm guessing it must have been a tech or something that was plotted. Oh, there's an LRPC though. Maybe that's what it was too. Hard to say, but either way, there is a bunch of medium tanks over here. The alligators, sorry, the salamanders. those heat ray tanks. Not used to those ones. I quite like them. I think heat ray tanks kind of fit the whole Cortex theme pretty well. Fording up pretty good here. Fording up here. Playing too much Fortnite, I guess. Making sure to porcupine as hard as possible in the center of the map to make this essentially an unbreakable position here. Much easier to break through here because it's a tighter choke point, but it's also a lot harder once it's defended well, right? In other words, you gain access to a lot of opportunity paths once you break this line, which makes it a very good candidate for holding on as long as possible. We do have the honorary tick spam, or the necessary tick spam. Mandatory tick spam, that's the word I'm looking for. If you're an Armada player, it's like an addiction. You make a tick spam once and you realize how wonderful it is, and you just start setting them up left, right, and center. That LRPC is firing away all over the place. Shields are coming up here. Shields are kind of dangerous, actually. They can oftentimes backfire. You don't intend for them to, but they can backfire and end up sending shots well into your backline where you least want them. That is several grunts right here. I'm gonna go ahead and call that about 96 grunts, give or take. Gonna be swarming the beaches over here. Now, bulls are essentially the perfect unit for dealing with grunts. You can see they have enough AoE and enough damage to really shut those grunts down quickly, but is there enough? I think there's just enough grunts to break through this by sheer indomitable will alone. They will jump on top of this forward facility. Are they going to be able to get much work done, though? They're going for the T2 lab here, and it looks like they will. Oh, not to get it. Very nice little bit of micro there. Oh, they do get it. Some friendly fire from the bulls. Ends up taking out the lab. How unfortunate. I was going to say some lovely micro from Mustard to heal up that laboratory using the construction bot, or the res bot, rather. But managed to actually snipe the lab there is our dark green player, Sephi. Nicely done, sir. Who has gone for a nuke, by the way. That hit somewhere on the map and I didn't notice? I don't think so. I feel like I usually notice those explosions, even if I don't catch them. Lightning tanks now trying to break through, but there are lightning tanks out for the red player as well, and so I think these are going to be repelled one way or another. Rattlesnake has been built over here. It's usually a pretty compelling argument not to push into this. However, the bulls have sturdy enough armor that they are, yeah, I mean, more than happy to push on through, take a little chipping on the paint, and use that thick, sturdy hide of theirs to rampage through any China shops that they can find. In the end, the lightning tanks here will be the repulse, the answer, solution. But how good of a solution? I mean, you know, decent. Carved up some of those bulls, but I think eventually, yeah, it's time to pull these forces back. Those bulls are going to have an advantage on the retreat, and an advantage that I don't think it's worth trying to counteract here. Geothermal battery has been built, and it is firing away at all of these defenses over here. You can see it targeting, dumb firing, but targeting at this point. But the scatter from those shots is certainly enough to make it into the back line and scuff up some of those units. Starlight goes down. Bulls are going down. Metal Extractor might even go down, which would be quite a nice pick. That is a 2.8, and it's an advanced Metal Extractor, which is quite important. Looks like there was a tremor harassing poor Strawberry here. Oh, that's so unfortunate. I mean, that is absolutely the right place to put a tremor. Which commander was making that? Looks like that was Jaded Cross's tremor. Very nicely done. That's an excellent strategic decision, putting the tremor right there and firing it over this hill onto the base of Strawberry. I mean, I can't think of a better application for the tremor than firing over the cover of a mountain like that. Very nicely done. The Hound Ball has been rebuilt here. Looks like Amancha has one thing and one thing only in mind, and it's hounds. We're not gonna mix up the composition too much here. We're not gonna change things up. If it isn't broke, why bother trying to fix it? Just gonna go for more and more hounds. We are including a radar bot. We are including a jammer bot. That's all the sophistication that's really needed, because these hounds have now broken through the front lines of our green player, who's just been on the back foot for a while now. Needs some sort of quick response to all this. Just doesn't have it. I suppose there is one quick response to all this, and it's the nuclear kind of quick. This nuke will be targeted directly into the heart of Mustard's base. Apparently not worried about his own opponent in his own lane, but rather worried about the opponent that he has, well, a little bit south of there. Maybe hoping to clear out some room for these grunts to run by. Hounds here are now trickling south, or well, trickling northward here. into the southern side of Flat E's defenses, but into the northern side of the map, or on the middle side of the map. Nuke is up in the air, though. No anti-nuke, at least not on the front lines here. Fair enough. I forget that all the time as well. Don't really think about it, but yeah, that nuke is going to connect with the frontline facilities, meaning that at least for a good while here, yeah, that is Mustard's production solidly turned off here. There are T2 constructors in the backline here, as well as some T1, so it's not going to be impossible to rebuild, but yeah, for a good while, Mustard is going to be out of this game a little bit. This is always an interesting engagement down here. Usually turns into a big stalemate, right? On these big long games, turns into who can build more artillery, who can get that T3 out quickest. Usually that's the defining attribute of this lowland fight right here between Nobi and Sir Ice Cream. T3 transition has happened up north. I've been waiting to see who's going to go into T3 before anybody else, and it makes sense that our blue player here, Kuchi, would be able to get into T3, having the metal extractors up and running here on the northern side, while the opponent doesn't have these metal extractors, or even these metal extractors. That's a little bit sloppy, not rebuilding these ones. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's fair, right? It's difficult to spare a constructor when you feel like you really only have one and it's needed at home. But either way, yeah, those Marauder are being built up here. We're saving up the Marauder and probably going to hope to go for some sort of devastating attack on the northern front lines of the red team. Banisher is not bad at dealing with all these hounds. However, they tend to waste their shots quite often against a bunch of ticks, so it's very nicely done that we're spamming these ticks across the field. It's like I said, as an Armada player, not only can you not resist it as a, you know, just an appeal, but it's almost a moral obligation. Like, you know that your units could just probably function a little bit better if they had a bunch of ticks running towards the enemy at full clip. It's I mean, it's an interesting one. I do appreciate, though, that we're mixing in the welders here. I think that's quite nice. It's going to lend some durability to this composition. However, those welders do need to be on the front line. It does you no good having those welders in the back. The hounds, of course, are the siege unit here. They're meant to be behind the welders while the welders march forward. One fair way to control this army is to put the welders on one hotkey group and to just move command them into your enemy's line, and then take your hounds, put them on a different control group, and fight command them into the other line. That way your welders are distracting and soaking up the shots, and they're continuing to move forward, while your hounds will stop and won't put themselves too much further into harm's way than they absolutely need to be. Oftentimes that tends to work out pretty well here. Welders work really good, though, as a frontline skirmisher. They are they're very, very tanky for what you pay for them anyways, and you can do a whole lot of damage if you control them properly. Sort of a slow and steady kind of a unit. Very Cortex in design in that way, but obviously wielding that lightning gun, making them very obviously an Armada unit. A couple of advanced exploiters here. That's actually quite nice. Those advanced exploiters, man, it's easy to underestimate them, but do not. They are brutal. I mean, viciously savage. They are I mean, as far as weapons of war go, they are an engine, to say the very least. Expensive, though. Very expensive. Anti-nuke is launched. Looks like the second nuke out of the nuke chamber here. The old nuclear pothole from Steffi is not going to connect. Anti-nuke has been thoroughly placed all around the map here. Nobody wants to be the second man nuked, but you know, oftentimes that is somebody's duty. Get your anti-nukes up. That's all I can say. Marauder are going to swarm this low-end base, and that's actually a really nice leverage of resources right there. Yellow player has been so focused on the line that didn't really realize that there was such an abundance of forces, and then the red player being slightly out of position here does mean that those Marauder are going to have a field day picking apart this base, and down goes basically everything that Newbie held dear. Evacuating the commander with a transport, that's basically all that is left here. Not really very much in the back line, and indeed looks like Newbie is going to go ahead and hand all of that off to Zah, the red player, who is now in charge of not one, but two different lanes. Marauder aren't done yet, though, and they're going to continue marching across the battlefield here. That's quite nice. I gotta say, Marauder are looking pretty good in the current balance pool. Yeah, they're definitely one of those units that Armada just can't live without. They're powerful, they're quick, high damage, low cost. I mean, what more could you ask for, right? The perfect T3 unit. Aside from maybe the Cataphract. If you haven't seen that, go check out the recordings of the live streams, the two most recent live streams. We've been testing out a mod that was made that showcases what the Cataphract could be, should be, hopefully will be, question mark? I hope so. I don't know who to petition about that, if there's anyone to petition at all, but I would love to see the Cataphract get a little bit of an update. I love that tank, but I really just think it's not in a place where it should be here. T3 Vanguard are marching their way across the map, though. and it's a pretty good solution to a lot of this spam. So much damage that they can arc across the field in that plasma schnozzle of theirs. Very, very dangerous. Very important that you keep that thing, or well, keep those things, the vanguards, that is, constantly out of harm's way, but firing into the enemy. It's a tricky balance, but much easier to do when you have miles and miles of attack range like the Vanguard does. Certainly makes for an effective unit in that sort of a sense. Persecutor here set to dumbfire, and that's a bit of a mistake. Should probably set that to allow itself to target again. Resbot's here, patching this army up instead of eating. I think I would rather have this metal in my back pocket and producing T3 rather than resurrecting here. Usually that's, I mean, once you get T3 up, basically all resources just go towards that. I don't really see much more of a point in including a whole bunch more T1 tanks. I mean, you can see just how effective these Marauder are. I think it's probably well worth going for more of that, or maybe some Vanguards, Razorbacks, all that sort of stuff, which indeed it does look like that's the idea here. But yeah, you gotta be pretty on top of it on the front line here. Kuchi electing rather to resurrect though, and I mean, to each their own, I should say. Looks like our purple player Volshock is going to be reclaiming though, and that's quite nice. Looks like I missed it, but Angry Strawberry's T2 lab did go down. You can see in the bottom left the advanced vehicle plant debris. 700 metal remains out of that nearly 3,000 metal structure. That's a bit of an oof. It hurts a little bit. Cannot lie. Oh, what is that? Hold on. I'm going to back off a second. All right, so I backed off a couple of minutes here because I missed something really important, and it was this. There were a bunch of scout planes that did manage to go all the way across the map here by Sephi. We can see if I turn on the player view, got a nice little view of exactly where all of the different bases are. It's super important because, of course, going for that nuclear strategy is basically no good if you're just going to fire into a whole bunch of anti-nukes. So that was really important, and I apologize for missing that, where I believe we're about 35 minutes in, so we will just carry on wherever we were from here, because I think that is exactly how we saw that nuke manage to find its way into this minuscule little gap right there. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Anyways, up on this lowlands area, it looks like the pink and yellow forces are now working together. This is that big Marauder push. I see why we can't watch this one more time in high definition. Run it all back, I say. Do that, and there we go. Let's focus on these guys. There's these guys, there we are. I mean, what more is there to say about the Marauder? This thing is pretty much your de facto on any big map that requires pretty swift run-bys. Can pretty much take down any of the advanced T3 structures, T2, T3 structures with relative ease. I mean, you only need a couple of them to take them down quickly, but if only one makes through, I mean, eventually it's going to take them down regardless. So I really think the Marauder is pretty much what you should be aiming for as an Armada commander. And the trickiest thing, of course, is just the fact that it comes out of the T3 gantry, because it costs basically the same as a bull. A bull being just a measly 950 metal versus the Marauder's 970? Yes, 970 metal. Means that for a relatively minor cost comparative to some of the other units you might be going for, you get an extremely effective package. And it comes on 2 legs too. That's always a benefit. Yeah. This is a nice little fortified position right here. We have the pulsars firing away. We have the rattlesnakes dispensing long-ranged plasma justice. And then, of course, the pit bulls also firing their little Gauss nozzles as well. And not to mention beamer turrets to accompany everything. You know, I'm a big fan of the beamer turret. One of those units that you just can't live without. Do we have the target selected already? We do. Wow. Okay, target is right here, right in the middle of the map here. You can see it's right next to all those metal extractors. So the question is, did Sephi manage to find that? No, I guess he didn't find the anti-nukes. Must just assume that the anti-nukes are somewhere around here. Change the target. Let me keep those selected so we can see whenever that pops up. Vanguard do deal pretty well with the Marauder, though, I have to say. Like, they definitely are a decent option for dealing with those Marauder, because the AoE damage is pretty immense, and the Marauder do tend to clump up if you don't spread them out nicely. they can, yeah, they can certainly get into a little bit of a pickle. Anybody else just see that anti-nuke circle just get smaller right there? What was that about? That was odd. I think it's time. Well, one of these bad boys is going to fire up into the red base. I think that's the one that we saw get shot down here. I'm just waiting for it. Ah, there we go. Okay, we'll be retargeted. I was going to say, it looked like it was a lot more effective than one patch of metal extractors. Okay, yeah, so these nukes are going to just, I mean, just barely manage to squeeze past the anti-nukes here of the red team. Not 100% anti-nuke coverage, though, and that's exactly what's going to happen. The nuke is up and away. There goes that intercontinental ballistic missile. Boom. Excellent connection right there. I mean, that is a miracle nuke right there. That's what you're hoping for. That's what you need when you're playing as those nukes. You really need to make those connections every once in a while. Otherwise, it's essentially just a big waste of metal. Very nicely done by Sephi, putting that nuke down right where it hurts the most. Hugs is now critically stalled on energy. That was all of the energy infrastructure. None of these static defenses are worth a damn. Well, none of these pulsars are worth a damn anyways. If they can't fire, another nuke is intercepted in the middle of the air there, so it will be shut down. Looks like Strawberry is going to go into catapult production. No, sorry, going to go into Karganeth production. She left in her note that catapults would play an important role in this game, so I figured I might as well pay attention. Oh, a little bit of a hot pause action right there. Sorry about that. This is a dangerous looking push, though. That is going to be a grand total of 7 Razorbacks pushing in with 2 Vanguards and then sharpshooters for fire support. Man, that is a mean looking army. Yeah. We're talking about Razorbacks accompanied by sharpshooters accompanied by Vanguards. That's, I mean, as far as damage potential goes, high damage per second goes, pretty much doesn't get higher than this. This is about the top of the line. That is some good stuff right there. Breaking this is going to be difficult to do. I think, I mean, as far as your options go, a nuke would probably be a decent option. There's tons of anti-nuke though, so that's not really going to work. Other notable options might be something like going for EMPs or tactical nuclear missile launchers. You could always build those tactical nuclear launchers right over here. Try and go for something cheeky by building those tacky nukes and firing them into this area, maybe shutting down the plasma generator, all that sort of stuff. But it does look like catapults are going to be the name of the game. 2 catapults, and I think probably many more are going to be on the way. We'll have to keep our eyes on the middle of the map here and check in on there every once in a while to see what's up with that. Resbots here from the red player patching up some of these fallen Razorbacks. Very nice to see. Often easy to forget, but yeah, definitely can make a huge, huge difference. Sharpshooters, man. Whittling down the blue forces here, though. So nice. Razorbacks clean up all the spam, and then the sharpshooters have their free reign to shoot down whatever they want. Man, that is an effective composition right there. Really, really nicely done. Red is actually stalling on energy. I would love to see, oh, yep, another advanced fusion reactor coming up and online. Looks like he was already about 9,700 metal ahead of the curve, as far as I am concerned anyway. And yeah, is going to have that extra power up and running here to hopefully resurrect some more of these heavy T3 units. Razorbacks are obviously an excellent option for resurrecting. They can get so much value out for their cost, and yeah, I mean, resurrecting them, you're basically getting them on the front line as well. And really is hard to beat reinforcements that close to the front. Catapult down south here, firing away at ticks. Not exactly where you want it to be firing at. Catapults are notoriously bad at friendly fire, or, well, they're good at friendly fire, I suppose. They're notoriously, they friendly fire a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. They friendly fire a whole lot, and especially if there's a lone tick standing right next to your advanced fusion reactors, the catapult has no quarrel with, or no qualms about firing directly into the center of your base, and not just 1 or 2 missiles, but every single missile that it can cram into its backpack payload there. Yeah, very, I mean, Cortex in a nutshell, right? Brutal, brutal friendly fire. Nuke up here does wipe out a whole lot of the static defense. That's actually really nice, but I think by now, I mean, I'd be surprised if there's anything that's, anywhere rather, that's not protected by anti-nuke coverage. Forward units did indeed get nuked here. This is actually still unprotected, although these pulsars are quite durable, and I think they might survive a nuke if they close up their little shells. Orange Razorbacks now found an opening, and they're going to start pressing their way down south here. stomping up and in and through the hills, trying to find some sort of an engagement. It's very dangerous and difficult to do. 4 Razorbacks in a line, prime D-gunning position. Always worth investigating. Here's a couple of those mobile constructors, right? Those mobile printers. 200 build power apiece, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, they actually have a pretty good assortment of different things that they can build. Radars, walls, metal extractors, and solar panels. Basically all you could need, but I think this is really where it's what it's meant for, right? Is supplying build power to T2 constructors. Razorbacks are now, well, not quite the back line per se, kind of the mid line. Trying to break through this static defense here. There is a bulwark, so that's quite nice. It's going to help in the defense here. Really only that top laser beam contributing very much here. But I think it is enough. Catapults and Shiva as well, going to burst down all of these Razorback, leaving them as nothing but smoking piles of twisted metal and laser. We are up to 5 catapults. Nice spread on the firing right there. Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to survive that. That is the beauty of the catapult, is you can kind of just point in a direction that you don't want to exist very much longer, and yeah, it just kind of ceases to become much more than a barren wasteland. That's a obvious perk of having catapults on your side, is just you can make parts of the world disappear in the blink of an eye. Ticks wasting all the sniper shots here are going to soften up the well, the front lines for the red team here, making these Thors, well, giving the Thors rather, an opportunity to push through. EMP missile was used. Always happy to see those EMP missiles used. They're neglected often, which is a bit of a shame. They're one of the most impactful tools that the Thor has at its disposal. I mean, you can imagine all this defense in the world, and what is it worth if the EMP missile connects and it just all shuts off, right? And there it goes. Shutting down all that static defense, and the Thor is going to have a field day running right on through it. A couple of Vanguards actually in trouble here. Yeah, Thors are going to jump on top of it. Those EMP beams getting to work too. Can't wait till that EMP rework is finalized so that we can finally see these units have their fire rate affected by the EMP here, rather than it just being basically pointless until it finishes EMPing. I'm a big fan. I really think the EMP rework is going to bring some new life into this. Nice little D-guns here by Nizza, shutting down some of those tanks, and I think our blue commander here, Kuchi, probably suspects that there's a commander over here, because he moves the ticks in, finds the commander, and is going to jump on top of it with the ticks. Thor fires away as well, which is going to, at the very least, dissuade this commander from hanging out over there. The southern line is breaking. Yeah, catapults are a great option. They can certainly outrange most of what's over here. The Pulsar might be the only thing that can contest them. But can it contest a grand total of 8 of them? I doubt it. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much firepower coming out of these bad boys. One of them can contribute a devastating amount of firepower, but you get it. A big enough number of them working together in unison on the front lines, you've got a really, really devastating force. Shield battery goes down, and that's going to allow the Shiva to fire with a whole lot more accuracy, a whole lot more pain. As you can see there, heavy plasma projectile being lobbed through the air and into the enemy's face. There's those catapults, softening up those pulsars quite a bit as well. Karganath now moving in, the sort of assault unit, if you will. The raiding unit of the Cortex T3 gantry. A little bit of a heated discussion as to the AFKing of your structures and whatnot going on here, apparently. Yeah, these pulsars don't stand a chance. Shiva now making their way inbound, and as soon as those missiles fire out of the Shiva backpack, you know you're in trouble. Down go, well, quite a lot of these forces. Vanguard trying to hold the line as well. Vanguard are definitely a great option here, just for the fact that they can outrange most of this. Can they outrange the catapults, though? I don't think so. What is the range on one of these bad boys? Why don't we compare this numerically here? Range of 1325 versus the catapults 1350. Okay, so the catapult does win on range by about 25. Not the not the most impressive victory as far as that goes, but certainly a victory nonetheless. Won't matter though, as the catapults do manage to bring down the T3 gantry, accompanied by their Shiva brethren, and that is going to be all she wrote for the Orange forward production facilities here for Dylan. On top of a very nice economy in the backline here. Tons and tons of metal, tons of energy, but just no way to effectively spend it. I think we need to slap down some sort of an air lab, a T2 layer lab that is, or maybe start up some T2 defenses, something in order to spend all the metal, because right now it's just leaking over to the teammates. And while that's not necessarily the end of the world, it's certainly better if you can spend your metal and use it to get more metal. This guy could have won game for like 15 minutes. Let's see if that's true. I mean, kind of. There's a lot of static defense down here, so it's not like it would have been easy to break through there, but certainly could have used these forces as a counterattack in order to push through in that section over there. Pulsar's firing away over here, accompanied by Starlight, sort of a quicker version of a Pulsar, I suppose. But either way, a very, very effective composition. At this point, there is so much T3 mounting in the middle of the map, though. Both players going into that epic T3. Whoa, what? Sorry. Derping with the camera controls. There we go. Tried to enter cinematic mode, and instead I entered Star Watch mode, I suppose. There go those catapults firing away, though. Man, talk about a brutal unit. With all those Shiva standing right next to each other, those catapults are going to have a field day tearing those apart. It's all about efficiency, right? Like, how much damage can you do per the cost of the metal that went to the unit, and it's trades like this that give you that damage efficiency. I don't know how many Shiva just went down there, but I can tell you it's thousands and thousands of metals worth for, well, to be fair, thousands and thousands of metal worth of catapult, but also, this is not the first T3 unit that these bad boys have killed. With 66 kills under their belt, 68, and I feel like a lot of those are probably some of those heavier T3 units, so it's a fairly impressive resume. Kargan had great inclusion on the front line here as well. Killing all those spam units that are sent forward, they're pretty much perfect for that sort of job. Razorback's thinking about moving in here. Catapults are retargeting though, and they're going to start firing away. These units are on patrol for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. This is a tough battle to close out. I think this force up north could do it. That's a lot of Thors. Thor spam is particularly effective. I mean, any T3 spam is going to be fairly effective, but Thors particularly, especially against big turtled up positions, obviously, because of that EMP ability that they have, the EMP rocket. They can essentially nullify big fortified positions. Not sure why the ticks stopped here. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but yeah, moving all this forward would probably be a good idea. The Vanguards are just having a field day. Hello? Bit of an APM stall here from Kuchi. Not sure exactly why we're just taking that hit on the face, but either way. Eventually, I feel like those forces are going to be more than enough. You know, you get enough Shiva grouped up together and they're going to be able to start bursting down those Razorbacks. Razorbacks lack an AoE damage. That's kind of their one main hindrance. And oftentimes, it's not really that big of a deal, but especially against units that are spaced out properly, against Razorbacks that are clumped up improperly, yeah, those Shiva can oftentimes show their ugly face. Show what they're worth. This T3 push right down the middle of the map is so dangerous, though. Ah, there we go. Yeah, build power was focused on the wrong thing here, so there were no T3 units coming out for a long time. That's going to come back to hurt the orange player for quite a bit of damage. Finally, T3 production is up and running in full swing here for Jaded Cross, and that's going to be quite nice to pump out some sort of an answer to all these Shiva that are making their way across the field here. There's a Juggernaut as well to try and help out. Thor also going to be produced, but I have a feeling it's going to be the last Thor this gantry will ever produce. It's got a weight command on it. The build power isn't really doing anything right now. Ah, this is just unfortunate to see. There goes the Thor firing away at whatever it can, and for what it's worth, I mean, it burst down these Shiva relatively quickly. What is that, 2-3 shots in order to kill a Shiva? Something like that, might be 4. Very, very quick, nonetheless. Catapult rain. Catapult rain. Karganets acting as sort of the scouting force here, and then the Karganets cleaning up basically anything that those lovely, lovely spider bots, T3 spider bots, can find. Those thick spider boys crawling their way across the world. Juggernaut here. Juggernaut is actually fairly well countered by the catapults just because of how massive it is. The catapults can usually hit it fairly consistently from a decent enough range. Let's take a look here. Oh, well, you know, the Juggernaut wasn't really targeted right there, but we sure saw that that poor friendly Shiva get melted into I mean, nothing. There's nothing left. There's a little bit of a scrap pile left. Yeah, you gotta fear the catapult. It's one of those units that you start seeing on the front line and you really start sweating. There you go. Just shredding percent off that juggernaut right there. Very, very effective for what its job is. Would love to see this juggernaut self-destruct right now. I know it feels a little bit early, but self-destructing this would allow you to wipe out all this. And we will. Nicely done, Jaded Cross. Starts up the self-destruct. I think that's exactly right on time here. I think that's probably perfect decision making. I don't know, it might have been a little bit late here. The Juggernaut will pop without self-destructing. Does a lot less damage that way, and that is unfortunate, but still, nicely done to consider that anyways. The game is significantly slower all of a sudden. I wonder if there's somebody doing a insane T1 spam. Yeah, okay. Looks like we got a lot of ticks being spammed out in the back line here. Costs quite a bit of frame rate. Going into the late game, that's very difficult to do. I will say I like how spread out that tick spam is. You can see it's dispersed across the entirety of the map here, granting perfect vision across every corner of the globe here. I bet if we convert to the blue team vision here, yeah, I mean, you can see those ticks basically giving perfect vision of everything that the ticks can see. Everything that the light touches, the ticks can see, and yeah, it is really helpful. It gives you a sense of exactly where your enemy is pushing and how hard. For instance, all these sprinters that are trying to make their way around. I think Shiva are eventually going to clean the majority of these up, and that push will be thwarted. But of course, detecting it very early by those ticks running headfirst into it is a lovely perk of the job, so to speak. I love how cautious Strawberry is being with her catapults here. It's really easy to YOLO those in without any kind of Karganeth or Shiva or any kind of other support. And suddenly you find yourself with 4,900 metal per catapult worth of units on the enemy side of the map, going down to a whole bunch of spams of units, pawns, ticks, grunts, whatever. And yeah, you're suddenly donating a tremendous amount of units onto the enemy side of the map. Loads of res bots over here as well, trying to pick up a Juggernaut. I don't think that's the worst decision I've ever seen, although I would love seeing some of these peeled off, just a handful of these res bots peeled off in order to go eat up the rest of this wreckage field. 89,000, call it 90,000 metal worth of wreckage right there. Not that I think it's going to really matter all too much, but it would be lovely to overflow that back to your team to really cement this victory and set it into stone. Northern line is finally broken. Looks like eventually those units did decide to push here. There was a Titan produced by the red player, so that's quite nice. Thors are just kind of hanging out. I really feel like these Thors could have pushed in here and killed this red player quite a long time ago, but instead we're really delaying that push for as long as humanly possible, or robotically possible, I suppose. But it will not be all too much longer, as now there's a lot of grunts headed into the back line of the red player's base, and I think that will cement victory here for the blue team. Try to combine players and team. Ended up with Pleam. Juggernaut is back up on its feet. Always lovely to see. Nothing beats a Juggernaut except for a resurrected Juggernaut. That is I mean, talk about cost efficiency, right? Looks like the red team realizes that they're beat and decides to tap out here on this epic game on Bismuth Valley. What a cool one. A back and forth battle on the top half. I mean, just left, right, left, right, left. Every single turn that battle looked like it could have been won by either side there, but still managing to eke out a victory here as the blue team leader. And an excellent push right through the middle with those catapults, really demonstrating exactly how devastating those things can be, and indeed winning the Destroying Enemy Units and Defenses award, and I'm sure those catapults were in large part responsible for that. Hope you had a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the cast. I hope to see you once again in the very next Beyond All Reason video. Peace out, folks.